He's ready to go.
Ready. I'm ready.
He got his note cards and everything. He's ready to go.
We go now. 5, 4, 3, 2.
That is on me. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to iHeartRadio, Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. I'm your host, Alan Campbell. Also sitting in with me as my co-host, Karen Ford.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you very much. I'm going to jump right into something right quick. We have two things that happened today. First off, we had a shooting right out front of the criminal courts building. A man was hit 6 times. They do have a person in custody, but this goes to show the blatant and brazenness that people have gotten and little or no respect for the law or for the system. But the unfortunate part is that the system is so broken that people don't care anymore. It's one of the things where it's called catch me if you can. Fortunately for this circus clown, they did catch him. Last report that the individual that was struck 6 times, he's in critical condition. No further word on that. The next thing is really disturbing. I just think it's appalling. We have a Chicago police officer who has gone the means of his job, but he's a public servant, and that comes with the territory. And this officer, and we must commend him, he's a sergeant. And a year ago, 6 months to a year ago, he came across a family that was homeless, grandmother, and I believe it was 3 children. So what he did, he looked in on them from time to time, and he even went as far as to create a GoFundMe page for these people to receive funds so they can have the basic things they need. Now, in the infinite wisdom of the Chicago Police Department, this officer is being investigated because under the police policy that they cannot participate in any type of fundraising. Now, the understanding is this: the fundraising, it only applies to if they're doing it for political contributions or campaign. It doesn't mean it does not cover doing a fundraiser to help people. The way that the community and police are interacting right now, I just really have to frown upon this, especially internal affairs, that do you really think that that's the right thing to do? This officer is helping, key word in there, helping, HELPING, helping the less fortunate. But the most disturbing part is that there are no community leaders or clerk or ministers that have stepped up to even help or to even join in. That's just me doing a little ranting right now, but it's just disturbing. But going in, so tonight's topic, we left off on a few things last week as far as boys to men and raising our girls to become women. And we didn't get a chance to get into a very good analogy. There's a movie we were talking about this, called Claudine. An example of the deconstruction or the implosion. This is called what do you call, you throw a hand grenade into the middle of a room to see what happens. And in this film, we have this woman who has, I believe it was 6 kids, something like that. She had 6 children. And she's a maid working on the other side of town. She commutes from Harlem to uptown New York, clean houses. And this was in the 60s. So now she commutes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But at the same time, she's receiving some assistance, or what we affectionately call public aid. She's receiving this. So during this process, she runs into a man who takes an interest in her, and they develop a relationship. Now, the unfortunate part about this is that while she's receiving aid, she can't receive anything from this gentleman who might want to give her something to help her along, because it can't even be classified as a gift. But what this does, and this is a prime example of the system constantly keeping people at a poverty level to where they have no other choice but to resort to other means.
Well, yeah, we discussed this last week. We were talking about the demise of the Black family, which was part of what we were talking about, that there were not role models in the home to teach young men or teach boys how to become men. And part of that was, some of that is because of the aid system. Now, the aid system, as many of us know, is aid. It's not supposed to be your job. It's not what you're supposed to get and live on for 3 generations. But that system kept men out of the home. It eventually perpetuated that system because men were not supposed to be in the home. A woman could only receive aid if there was a child in the home, but not a male in the home. Not recognizing sometimes that even if there are 2 parents working in the home, they still may need aid, and that it was important, and it's still important, for a child to have a male influence in the home if it's at all possible.
Right, exactly. And this was systematically done throughout the Black community to where removing any type of positive male from that, and it completely destroyed the blueprint for that Black male child. So he gravitates to things that he sees on television, or the people that he's running with, or sometimes even, unfortunately, when the woman brings in a man into her life who may not be the best fit, but she's bringing him in because, one, she needs a companion, she needs a warm body next to her, or somebody to wake up next to. This is what you're reducing them to. And so now these children, they see these things in the proper guidance. They're taking this as, okay, this must be the way to go, or this must be the right way, when it isn't, because the system is continually perpetuating the breakdown and the deconstruction and the implosion of a Black family.
I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly that a lot of what has been created and what continues helps to destroy the family unit as we know it, or as we've always envisioned it. And the other thing, and we talked about this last week, was that someone into your home, to your children, be it male or female, you have to be particular. You have to be choosy. This person cannot just meet your needs. But once you bring someone into your home and they're acting as a surrogate parent to your child, that person needs to meet some criteria. Some criteria needs to be set so that that individual and your children know that you're not just bringing Uncle so-and-so in, or Aunt so-and-so, or Miss so-and-so, but that this person understands, I have children, and therefore every time Dick and Harry does not get to meet my children, they don't get to hang around my children. If you have a person in your life who you merely have as a companion, but is not going to be involved with your children in your home.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's called, it's something. Sometimes it's called the summertime dad. That's sometimes he's here and sometimes he isn't. Or you definitely have to be selective. It just can't be. And unfortunately, we have too many single mothers that gravitate in this direction. Too many, and they're bringing 11 different people in and through their lives and the lives of their children, and these children wind up gravitating, or this winds up perpetuating for another generation, where the daughter, now she's seen her mother, so to speak, go through man after man after man, to where it's, okay, what's going on here? So now what she does is that she winds up gravitating to these type of individuals, and they're worse than the ones that the mother may have been with. And so now she's dealing with this, and heaven forbid that this young lady, heaven forbid that she becomes pregnant, and then after 1, there's 2, and then you look up and there's 4 or 5 more, and now you have them all scattered about. So and now what happens now is that, what does she do? She immediately runs and gets assistance, and then here we go again with the same perpetual cycle. And at the same time, we're seeing the families continue to, this is a tree with a lot of dead branches and wilting leaves because there's no root. It's not taking hold because the foundation has been completely destroyed from the inside out, with a little help from outside entities. From that, the way it's coming, and when and I understand that sometimes we all want to have someone in our lives, companionship. But as they say, all money ain't good money. Everybody ain't good for everybody. They are not. You got a person that comes in and this is all they want to do is that they want to money. They want to eat your food. They want to chastise your kids. But what are they bringing to the table? What are they bringing to help make this situation different or better? When you have two people who are broken or who have no concept on how to run a family, how to create a family unit, or you're leaving your children to go hang out with this individual, and you're leaving a 10-year-old to watch the other 5, which happens almost systematically. So what are you teaching me? What are you teaching them? You're not teaching them responsibility. You're teaching them to accept, hey, this is life. No, that's not. This is not life. This is something that you're putting them in because as we said before, these children didn't actually come here. They didn't have anything to do with this. It wasn't a roll of the dice. This was something that we decided to do. And now what happens is that now this child has come here, and now neither one of you want to be bothered with each other. So what do we do? What do we do? Take it out on the child. Or heaven forbid that she brings someone in who don't like children, or he's got issues himself, and you've been trusting him to do this. You don't know nothing about it. You're bringing too many things into the fold that you yourself do not know and understand. And there comes a point to where you have to understand first of all, who do I introduce my children to, and when do I do it? When you have that type of setting. When you have that type of setting, there's some women that will not let you meet their children, and they won't let you meet their children until they're comfortable with that individual. And I hats off to them, because they're taking everything into consideration. I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me, and I really don't want you around because I don't know anything about you. You could be just the worst person, but you're just showing me what you want me to see. And then once we're behind closed doors, it's a whole other ball game. You're introducing, you can't introduce your children to everyone. You just can't. If you even, and this is even if you're cheating, and you got and men tend to do this. They'll have their kids with them, and they'll ride they may go by the other girlfriend's house with their kids in the car. Why do we do that? What are you setting? What type of example are you setting for that child? Because at some point or another, he may say, "Well, who is that?" Well, answer, "Oh, she's just a friend." Look. No, you're going by a house 2 or 3 times a week. Y'all more than friends.
And I've heard of that. I mean, we have relatives who've done things like that.
She's just a friend.
She's just a friend. And I agree with you, though, not letting someone leave your child early on. I remember mentioning this to you once before, is that when I was a single parent, and this is just me, so I am not saying that you have to follow my example, but it is an example. I went on lunch dates. You didn't get to come to my house. Everyone did not get to come to my house because my son was there in the evenings. After school, we came home, homework, dinner, the whole 9 yards. So you didn't get to come to my house. And meeting my son is a privilege. It was a privilege that a gentleman had to earn. You just didn't get that off the bat. You had to earn the right to meet my child, earn the privilege of meeting my child. So when I was dating, and I dated quite a bit, My son actually met two of the gentlemen that I dated, and I married the second one that he met. And that happened in New York. It also happened when we moved back to Chicago. But that was an example I set because it was an example set for me by my dad. Because I was raised in a single parent home, but I was raised by my dad. And so I did not meet every lady that he dated. I met a very select few, and I know he dated quite a bit. I would be with my grandmother. But it was an example that was set for me. So there are ways to do this so that you don't introduce your child or you don't bring people around your children consistently. That man needs to be around for a while.
Right, I absolutely agree. And when you introduce and when you introduce this man, and to not to completely make this one side, and when you introduce that woman to when a man introduces a woman to his children and vice versa, they have to be around a while before that initial meet and greet happens or begins. They have to be, because you need to know who you're dealing with. Who am I dealing with? Who is this type of person? I mean, this person may be something totally different. Now, we're not going to completely dismiss the fact that, okay, you have people that may have mental issues, people who have psychological issues, people who may have backgrounds, people who just can't get right or get it together. We totally understand that, and those things happen. That's part of the matrix of what we're dealing with. But it gives you enough time to make a decision to understand. First of all, understand that person. Gives you enough time to make a decision. Is this someone that I want around my children? Me, first of all, and around my children. Is this the kind of person that I want? It doesn't matter that this person gets up every day. This person may get up every day and go to a job, do what he does, and goes back home. But then when you all together, may be a different story. Or he's meeting your children, or you decide, hey, I think it's time for this person to meet my child or children. Once you get to that point, as a parent or the person that's introducing your child, you should explain to your child who this person is and who this person is, and make it clear, hey, this is not mommy, or she's not replacing mommy, or this is not dad and he's not replacing your dad. This is someone that's in my life who we interact with. You will see him or her from time to time. And then you're setting the boundaries also. You treat them as you would treat me. Where you respect them as you would respect me. You're creating that boundary. Because if you don't, when you get to where this individual is around on a regular basis, and even to a point where they may get the golden key, the golden pass to spend a night, and that child gets up and see, hey, who's that dude that just walked through here, or who's that young lady that just walked through here? So you and even with that, you have to be careful with that, because you're not trying to give them the wrong impression. You don't want to do. You're moving forward and saying, hey, this is how you work into a relationship, you develop into these things, and you conduct yourself in accordance to how you want to go about this. It was, and I know you mentioned before as well, and it was the same, and it was pretty much the same with me, to where it was it wasn't one of the things where it was right away. It was a gradual thing, because you're on guard, and you're saying, I don't know anything about you. And then at the same time, you don't know how your children are going to respond. And people forget, children talk. And children, when they talk, they say the most truthful things, as funny sometimes, and even as off key. They're being truthful. They're being truthful. So if you're saying that, and you all have the established boundaries. Well, hey, this is who this is. So that way, children go back, well, dad was, I went with dad and he was over such and such a person's house. Well, not, but it's not a secret because you've already informed the mother, you've already informed the child. This is what's going on. These are changes that happen in people's lives. These are things that are going to continue to happen. But at the same time, you are teaching them, you're grooming them in understanding the changes that's going to come with them, that's going to come with you, and it's going to come with them. And then you're teaching them how to manage these things and adjust to certain changes to where you're moving forward. And with women having that full knowledge and understanding, you cannot bring everything that you want into your life. You just cannot do it. And the unfortunate part is that we have too many of our young girls, and I mean young, that are gravitating to the wrong type of atmosphere, the wrong type of things. And at the same time, the breakdown between the daughter and the mother has been so eroded because she's still trying to discover who she is, or she's so angry and bitter about what has transpired in a previous relationship. So she's not even really concerning herself on how I should be raising my daughter. And then on the flip side, with being the man, it's really a double standard, unfortunately, and I'm gonna be truthful about that. It's a double standard because unfortunately men can just walk away and not look back. It shouldn't be done, but they do, because it's like, oh man, you're dealing with them, and you're dealing with them. But see, that doesn't identify him as a man. That was just somebody that was just there for the time being. A man is going to stay. If he's a real man, he's not going anywhere. Even if there's a breakdown between him and her, or her and him, he is going to be there to make sure that child has every single solitary thing they need in being on the right path, the guidance and the structure, the key word in there, structure, that they need in order to grow into the proper person. We're going to take a little break right quick here at iHeart-Radio, Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. We'll be right back.
If there's I would guarantee if a lady calls, she's going to say something about this being very confidential. But I'm just saying, when you're talking about taking somebody's name, which is a very old-fashioned notion. Yeah, it is very true, because there are things that we hold on to, and then the things that we push away. For instance, you can still start a fight if you say because that is something that people hold on to. But on the other hand, there's something that we have to let else's on. Why do you see this stuff like this? So you can't my daughter in the picture with you. But you hear this. Anybody say anything to you about your speaking here? What she said.
I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything about that, but I really
Little things in America that you
yeah.
Okay, all right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
And welcome back to Intellectual Radio, iHeart-Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. We're going to open the phones right now at 708-223-8953. That's 223-8953, and we will be fielding your questions or comments about tonight's topic called Claudine and the Deconstruction of the Black Family. We left off, we were discussing a few other things about introducing when is a good time to introduce your children to a new person. And you have to fully understand that there's no real time, there's no timetable or a blueprint. That's all in the person on when they decide on when it's good for them. And I won't even say convenient, when it's good for them, when they know enough and they feel comfortable enough to say, okay, you know what, I think this is where we're going to go with what it's affectionately called, well, we're going to take this to the next level. You want to call it that. Old fashioned, call it that. It is what it is. When we get to that point, and we live in a society now, and with the changing of the times, is that we have children being introduced to new people with little or no regard to what do I know about this person? And you hear more times than you care to hear about, oh, well, she's got a new guy, and oh, what happened? He just got out the joint, or he just came home from county, or he's a ragtag, or he's a gangbanger. But you're introducing your children to these type of people, and there's a part where that's a conscious decision. That's not that's a conscious decision and a choice that this is what I want, and only because this young lady, one, she's broken. Two, she has no blueprint on what type of person that I should even be associated with, let alone introducing my children to, child or children. So you're bringing this individual in, and things go sideways, and they tend to do, and it's just a lot. And there's times to where they do go sideways, but the unfortunate part is not reported. She's not reporting it. She's not filing paperwork. She's not doing anything. He takes a breather. He comes back, and this falls up under the battered wife syndrome. Oh, well, he loved. Wait. Use a little common sense there. Use a little common sense. You don't bring everything and everybody in. It's just going to do it, and especially when you already know what type of individual they are. There's no way in the world, okay. And I have daughters, and it's just no way. It's just no way. Hey, this guy's if he's a gangbanger or he's suspect, we're gonna have a long conversation. No, you're not. First of all, you're not coming to my house, and you're damn sure not gonna see my daughter. Not gonna happen. Not gonna do it because it's just too. Right now, we're living in an environment where too much is going on and too much is happening. It really is.
Well, you and I were just speaking, and we were talking about the fact that probably to some of you out there who are listening, you're thinking to yourself that this is very much an old-fashioned notion. And you're right. I mean, there's no debate about that. This is an old-fashioned notion. And we have become so technological that we forget that there are some old-fashioned things that are still just as knowledgeable, just as right today as they were 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 60 years ago. 1 and 1 still equals 2. We still know the laws of gravity. Those things will not change. And how you raise your children, who you bring in front of your children, or to your children, that does not change. The kind of parent that you wish to be should not change. And there is nothing wrong with having an old-fashioned notion about that. Now, one of the things that Alan was just speaking of was the idea of not only who you bring around your children, but the fact that we have a double standard. We do have a double standard. Let's just be honest about that. We know that even today, in 2017, women still make 78 cents to every dollar that a man makes. We also understand that if a topless beach is only called a topless beach if a woman goes topless, but men do it all the time. And there are a lot of men who are running around topless that I certainly don't want to see topless, but they're allowed to do that. And we know that an X-rated movie is only rated X if a male's genitalia is shown, but not a woman's. So we know that there is a double standard all the way around. And so it's one of the reasons why we are speaking so strongly to the ladies, but that does not absolve the men. It does not absolve the men of being the kind of man that they would like to see their sons be. And I know that just as women get the wrong information, men get the wrong information. We always talk about the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. We also know that in many ways our village is broken, but it's not completely broken. We have beacons here. We just have to decide, or those people who are looked upon as beacons need to decide whether or not they're going to take the time to pass on some of those old-fashioned but useful notions to the next generation. Because we kind of let them go. I mean, if any conversation that you may have about the civil rights movement, we talk about the ending of the civil rights movement. There was an abrupt end. It was a gradual end. When people were able to move out of their communities, they moved. When people were allowed to go wherever it was that they wanted to go, shop wherever it was they wanted to shop, do whatever it was they wanted to do, other people were left in a neighborhood that became impoverished because those people moved out. Last week, I remember mentioning the doctors and the lawyers, but not just them, the sanitation workers, the plumbers, the electricians, all of those people who made a neighborhood stable, they also moved out. And it left other people behind, those people who were struggling, those people who needed to see a role model. And so they've been kind of left, and they've been left in the lurch for at least the past 30 years that I can think of, if not more. And so they've been abandoned. So they've been abandoned to create their own rules that are not based in any kind of truth or any kind of fact. And then we're angry when they act accordingly. Well, if you want a child to straighten up, then you have to straighten them up. And then you have to be there to enforce the rules, and you have to be there to enforce the learning. Because if children are not taught, they will not learn. Or they will learn by watching what you do and not what you say. And those two things have to be in tandem.
They have to be. They have to be. You're exactly right. I remember growing up as a boy growing up, and I would love being in my grandmother's house. Being there, I love being there more than I like being in my own home. And it wasn't the fact that there was something going on. It was just how she was and how the things that she would say and sit and talk about. And I would sit there and listen to her talk about various things, how she grew up as a child, what the world was like when she was coming up, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I always say. And in raising her children, and one of the things that she was a very strict disciplinarian. And fortunately for me, I didn't taste that, and I was glad of that because it was an interesting story. She had my grandmother planted 7 weeping willow trees. And if you've ever seen one, if you're from the South, you pretty much know what that is. You know what the type of tree that is. And when that tree matured, and one of my uncles kind of got out of pocket, and she sent him out there to get 3 branches off that weeping willow tree. So you already know where this is going.
Oh, yes.
So she sends him out there, and she said, "No, don't get the wood. Don't get the ones that are white. Give me the ones that are green. Get the green now. If you get the ones that are white, they'll break. You get the ones that are green, they bend." So she sat there, and she had a sun porch. Went out there and got them, and she took all the leaves off and the other branches, and she sat there, and she braided these 3 branches together. Yeah, branch. And she called them in there. And if you've ever been hit with a weeping willow branch, when it hits you, it doesn't leave a welt. It's just almost like your skin disappears. So if you are really dark complexion people, by the time you get done, you're gonna look like a checkerboard. But when she got done with him, he had an understanding on what for and how come. But whatever it was that he did, it never happened again. And that's the whole part of the old way of doing things. As they say, well, I don't want to raise my children the way I was raised. Well, my parents were this, my parents were that. Well, here's the thing: you're still alive. You might have suffered a black eye, broken bone. They may have drew blood, but you're still alive. Unfortunately now we can't do that, because if you do that, guess what? You're going to jail. You're going to jail for disciplining your children. But if Johnny Law gets a hold of them, and Johnny Law beats the hell out of them in county, we got a caller coming in. All right.
That's real.
Yeah. So when that happens,
Okay, hold on.
hi, this is Alan for the Chronicles of Rohn, iHeartRadio intellectual caller. Where are you calling from?
Okay, so George is back on the line.
Hi, Georgia.
What's going on, Georgia?
All right, so I'm going to start a little recent. So there was a comment that was just made as far as teaching the children and dealing with. I'm going to tie a couple of things together, but dealing with the teaching of children, the breakdown of the family, of the economic structure of our communities, American community, and most importantly, looking at the proper perspective of those dynamics, because those are dynamics that are looking at the support of any community. So as it relates to the economic breakdown began with the integration of the society. And we did not pay attention, much like we're not paying attention to this new economic restructuring that's going on. It is not a government's job to educate a class of people on how their particular history fits into the fabric of a bigger framework of a society or of a country. And I say that because before you learn that you're a citizen, you should understand that you're a male or a female. You should understand your lineage, that you're a Johnson, a Smith, an O'Reilly. That you learn that before you understand your pledge of allegiance. And that comes from the home. 90% of the failure is home related, simply because this has nothing to do with the restructuring of this or that. The education system is failing. First of all, before they take one set into a classroom, there should no training embedded into this style, so that they now have a good idea of their identity and how that structure is supposed to operate within the framework of the world. And I'm going to give you a prime example. When you purchase a computer, whether it is a Mac or a PC, that particular computer comes with a general operating protocol. I won't say an operating system because that's something that you select, but it comes with a general operating protocol. Whether it's a Mac, it will have Apple embedded software. If it's a PC, it'll have the Microsoft type of software. But nonetheless, when that computer is purchased and is now in your possession, it has a fundamental understanding or operating protocol and framework under which it is designed to operate. So if you take a Mac or an Apple computer and you go and you're going to just not partition correctly and put Microsoft products on there and PC products on there, it's going to say there's a critical error. Come back to us when you got some common sense. Same thing with the PC. If you try to put some Apple software on there, it's going to reject it. And I say that because that is really fundamentally what we're doing. And we want to use the Bible, we want to use all of these other little caveats and scapegoats that remove our responsibility after having brought children into the world, or even adopting children, or even having become the new spiritual covering family, or in whatever that dynamic situation is. It is your responsibility. So in order to really, really solve the problem, we have to look at the mirror and say, who's responsible? Who created the situation? When God created the earth, remember, whatever he spoke, that's what it was. That's why he gave Adam the ability to name the animals. It wasn't that he couldn't. He decided, listen, this is your domain. You are to manage this domain. And see, that's another concept that we're ours. We are stewards of treasures that he's given us called the earth. It's very important that that concept is understood. You don't own anything. That's why you keep mismanaging it. See, when you're a steward and you treat it like it's someone else's property, which it is, then you manage it differently. You're not reckless with it because you know that you stand in account to someone else. And I'm saying that that is where, realistically, that sort of fundamental stuff has got to be taught. The Nation of Islam, and I'm not a huge fan of them, but I have to give them much respect because that is a primary reason why a lot of our men who have gone through dysfunctional, abusive relationships in the church, which is probably the biggest gang raper of all, excuse my French. The Nation of Islam is extremely appealing to these men because it allows them to understand and tap into that unseen and unrecognized potential to be the lion of the house and also the protector of that domain by giving them discipline, a sense of enlightenment, and understanding into how important they are to the framework of any civilization, how they have always been the framework of any civilization. So I'm just saying that that's kind of, you know, we're missing the point because we're talking to the girls, and that's great, and they should be held accountable. But it's hard to hold a little girl accountable to be a grown woman when all she's seen is a bunch of girls walking around in female clothes. I can't even expect you. It's like you can't have someone who's always been a pauper now become someone who has the expectation of responding and conducting himself as royalty. They're incapable of it because they have not been given the exposure, nor the training, nor the understanding of the depth of their existence and the weight of what they carry. You got to understand that. And that comes from a fundamental programming, just like I said with the computer. The computer comes with a set of instructions. And if you violate that set of instructions, it's going to kick back. And realistically, that's what we're dealing with. That's why we got kids that are on medication and all this other stuff and ADHD. It's not really the kids. It's poor management of the resources and the parenting identified the gift or the special needs that this child really has to make them most beneficial before they become a suspect and not a prospect in our community. That's my 2 cents.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Georgia, and we appreciate you. As always, thanks.
Yes, we do. And if I may, I do agree with a lot of what Mr. Georgia had to say. But the issue is not just the fact that we have children or that people are not getting things at home. The issue is, what do we do about that? How do we address that? Because if there's no knowledge in the home, where does this child go? Where do these young people go? Where do these individuals go to get this? Now, supposedly, we would tell our children, well, you learn this in school. Well, you don't learn this in school because there is no life curriculum in school. Or you would say, you would learn this at church. Not necessarily. I mean, most people go to church, they go on Sunday, then they go to Bible study on Wednesday, and whatever. But again, there are no life studies, or people will open up the Bible and they'll say this, and they're speaking of a time that was written years and years and years and years and years ago. And I'm not saying we have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but let's just be real here. A lot of people talking to them in the biblical language is like speaking to them in Shakespearean English.
Oh.
So what they need is some place to go, some people, and this is why I spoke about a village raising a child. There needs to be places, or there need to be places, or there needs to be something separate. It doesn't have to be by the government. In actuality, I prefer it not be. That people can go and learn about their history, learn about themselves. He spoke of the Nation of Islam. They do. I mean, they create a structure. So do the Jews. Jewish children go to Hebrew school so that they learn about the Holocaust. They learn about what it is like to be the chosen people as they speak of themselves and all the rest of that. In our community, where do we have that?
Right. And we're the only culture that don't have that base for our culture, or it's been systematically removed and replaced with something else. I heard a guy just a few days ago, and he was saying, well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Okay, fine, but we're not in Rome. We're in the African American community, and you want to teach me about British history. How does that help me? I need to know where I come from. I need to know who I am. And the unfortunate part is that, like Jordan was saying earlier, is that we are being, they're trying to give us input, they're trying to put a Mac program into a computer that won't accept it. And that's the unfortunate part as we continue to progress. We continue to digress. I don't even say progress, but continue to digress as a people, because we are being so inundated with the wrong program, the wrong doctrine. It's just constantly being given to us, and for whatever reason, we're not rejecting it, as most cultures do. You can't tell a Jewish kid to say, oh, forget about the Holocaust, or it didn't happen. You will get an argument from them. Or if you take another culture and you tell them the same thing, if you take the Hispanic community and tell them, oh, that this didn't happen with your people, it didn't happen. It wasn't the Cortez coming there and destroying the land and destroying the land and raping the people and all of this kind of, oh, no, happened. They didn't forget that. They won't. No, you will get an argument. But on the other hand, if we're told, well, you know what, slavery happened, massive abuse and murder happened among Black people, forget about it. And the funny part about it is that we hear it and we do. So what happens is that now, when we forget these things, then we forget on where we need to be in raising our children. Because why? We told to forget about it. No, don't raise your children the way you were raised. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, you don't do this, you don't do that. How is it that a person can write a book to tell you how to raise your children when they never even seen your child or your children? How is that even possible? And the funny part is that we accept that. We discussed this once before about the unfortunate part is that we have a tendency to accept what is given to us, whether it's fact or fiction. We accept it, and that's only because we feel so disenfranchised to where I might as well, something is better than nothing. No, it goes back. All money ain't good money. That's where it goes to. And our children at the same time are suffering from this. Sometimes we get to a point to where we want so much, and this is not a bad thing, but sometimes we can overwhelm them because of what we want for them, and we have to understand. But you have to let this child also have an identity of their own. You have to let them have that, and don't overload it with a lot of things that they may not be comfortable with or they're not ready for. So we sometimes we're getting off-centered here because we're not doing enough raising or we're doing too much to where they may fall off, their cheese may fall off the cracker, or they may go another direction, or they don't get it at all. And so we have to find that balance. And as you said before, same thing with the Jewish children. When Jewish children are made responsible when they turn 12, they have the bar mitzvah, they have the
bat mitzvah for the girls.
They have for the girls. And at that point, these are things to where, hey, you can know, they're telling the children, these are things that you can no longer do. And not only are they raising, but they're raising a child is also involved in their heritage and their culture, on who they are. This is who you are, this is who you want to be. When we get into, and this is a totally different subject for another show. We get into the part about the hair, weaves and extensions, things of that nature, or we get into different colors. Because what's happened, we have been stripped of our natural resources to where we've been told that we are these type of human beings, not a person, but human beings, to where we want to be someone else. To where we put other things in our bodies or on our bodies. And so now we're teaching our children to do the same exact thing. So what we're doing essentially is we're grooming the little bit of culture that they may have right out of it. We're grooming it right out. So then now they gravitate to other things. Say, oh, I want to look like her. I like her hair. Oh, I want to look like him. I like this. Instead of saying, raising your children to be who they are, but at the same time, the foundation between the man and the woman has to be laid. It has to be there. Welcome to the Chronicles of Rohn on Intellectual Radio, iHeart. Go ahead, call in. Where are you calling from?
Sorry, this is Georgia calling back. One more small tidbit of information that you may want to research as it relates to the look or the African American idea of their self-image. Look at what is called the Hottentot Vixen and the relationship to the French design of what was later called the bustle, and how they hid that level of history from us. While they degraded us on one level, they actually needed to emulate our beauty on a whole other level. I'm gonna keep this real brief. Basically what this was a group of French and Irish explorers went to what is now, and they were intrigued with the shape, the natural shape of these tribal women, particularly the suppleness, excuse my French, I'm not trying to be vulgar, but this is truth and this is documented, the shape of their breast and the wideness and fullness of their hips and lower area. I'll just keep it like that. So much so that they made a deal to capture this young lady, and they'll call her the Hottentot Vixen. Her real name is Sarah Bartlett. Basically, she was brought back to Europe and was pimped out as a freak show. And then they later modeled her after she was dead from disease, how to emulate the shape and the fullness of making a woman look more appealing instead of the ironing board that they were. Hence, that's where they created the bustle and recreated the rave of the design of giving the used to be flat, no shaped European woman the illusion of some level of sexuality and some level of shape. But anyway, look that up, and that is continually to be perpetuated. That's why we have hair weave issues now. Same thing, just different ideology. So I'll talk to y'all later.
All right, thanks a lot,
Thank
George.
you for calling,
Appreciate you.
Georgia. One of the things, you touched upon this, and so did our caller. You were talking about culture. First of all, to be Black in America, we have a created culture because we are the only group that has been here that did not come here voluntarily. We came predominantly. We came here as chattel as slaves or whatever to work. And we were stripped of everything, our religion, our language, our habits, our whatever. And so that culture or whatever it is that we create is created from those messages that we were given and told that this is the way you're supposed to be. And even now, here in 2017, we still don't have anything that is actually our own. There are things that we create from what was already here. But do we have, unlike the Jews, unlike the Puerto Ricans who, even though they are American citizens, they still celebrate Puerto Rican Independence Day, the Mexicans, everybody else, they have that motherland as a touchstone. They know about Mexican history. They know Native Americans know their history. We don't. And so a lot of our history comes from quote unquote slavery. So we don't know about the history we had prior to slavery.
And we sure don't. So that's all the time I have. That's all the time we have for tonight's show, the Chronicles of Rohn. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in on iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. This is Alan Campbell sitting in, and with my host, co-host, the lovely Karen Ford. We will talk to you all next week, hopefully. And everybody stay safe out there. Be good to each other. Oh, and one more thing. As you go through our life, remember, you cannot eat religion, and grits won't get you to heaven. Talk to you all next week.
One unlock the door. No, we got people here.